Thank you.
I'm Katie Lannon, in for Adam Riley. Tonight on Talking Politics, a new news outlet is coming to Boston.
There's a growing recognition that there's just not enough.
We'll hear from one of the co-founders of the Greater Boston News Bureau, a new nonprofit aimed at bolstering news coverage in communities of color. But first, it was a rough week for Nikki Haley, who lost the Nevada Republican primary by more than 30 points. Not to Donald Trump, who wasn't on the ballot, but to nobody. Nearly 2/3 of voters chose the option none of these candidates, fueling the notion that the race is effectively over. But as she has for weeks now, Haley is assuring supporters she's still fighting and setting her sights on March 5th when Massachusetts and 14 other states head to the polls.
Get ready for Super Tuesday. As we start to look at what's out there, just know I'm not going anywhere. I'm in this for the long haul. We'll secure
Is there still a chance that she can pull out a long shot victory? I'm joined now by Nikki Haley's Massachusetts campaign chair, Jennifer Nassour, also former chair of the Mass GOP. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
I do want to start off by talking about that result in Nevada. I know they do things a little unusually there, and I say that as someone who, is immersed in the many idiosyncrasies of Massachusetts. There's a caucus and a primary, so there were no delegates at stake in the primary, but symbolically, still not a great moment. Where does the campaign go from there?
At the campaign, they weren't even playing in Nevada, which is the funny thing. I mean, the news likes to spin it as if the campaign was actually playing, but she spent no time in Nevada. She spent no money in Nevada because it was a rigged caucus system. So they have a primary and they have a caucus, and the state party is controlled by all the Trump people. And so Trump was going to be the winner of the caucus. And the only thing that mattered were where those delegates were going to go, which were going to be awarded by the caucus. And so if she's not playing there and she wasn't doing anything there, and it was all going to go to Donald Trump anyway, because it was rigged, then there was no reason. And it's not a concern at all for the campaign.
So what's the focus been kind of in lieu of Nevada? Where's the Haley campaign been putting its efforts instead?
So she has been in South Carolina, and she's been fundraising around the country and going around the country and doing rallies and meetups. But in South Carolina, what we've been seeing is that thousands of people are showing up at her rallies. Thousands. There are 400,000 new people in South Carolina that have moved there since Nikki Haley was the governor of the state. And so they're reaping the benefits. And the reason they wanted to go there was because of the economic growth, because of how well South Carolina was doing. So she has an opportunity now to introduce herself to those voters and reintroduce herself to the folks that were there. And it's been quite a while since she's been governor, so now she gets to go back home and to talk to new voters, to voters that maybe were disengaged before and now are reengaging.
So South Carolina, that's coming up towards the end of this month. And then after that, we have Super Tuesday, where Massachusetts is one of the states that will be going to the polls. Massachusetts, unlike Nevada, but like a lot of those other Super Tuesday states, has an open primary. You can vote if you're not necessarily a registered Republican, if you're an unenrolled voter. How much of the outreach going forward is going to be towards those unenrolled voters versus registered Republicans?
Well, I mean, so 11 out of the 16 states on Super Tuesday, which is our continued focus in addition to South Carolina, are states that have either open or semi-open primaries. And so that means that in the semi-open, unenrolled voters, independent voters, can vote in those elections. And so those are the ones that we're really focusing on. Like Massachusetts, which has 62% unenrolled voters. That number, of course, goes up and down, but it's somewhere over 60%. The majority of voters, an overwhelming majority of voters, are unenrolled, and they get to vote on Super Tuesday. And so what we know is that in Massachusetts, there's a very interesting dynamic at play. You've got folks who are super interested in the economy. We are slightly higher and education than most states around the country. We're slightly higher in economics and the level of economics in the state. So people are very concerned about the economy. I think also, and there was a recent poll that was done that shows people are really concerned about the migrant crisis. Those are things that are in Nikki Haley's sweet spot, making sure that the border is secure, making sure our economy is on track, making sure we have excellent education for our children. Again, one of the big issues in Massachusetts, and making sure that nationally, our national security and our foreign policy is in check.
Let's stay here in Massachusetts for a second. You're leading the campaign team here, which was fully announced this week with quite a few state lawmakers, sitting Republican lawmakers, joining the Haley effort here in Massachusetts. It tends to be tougher for Republicans to run and get elected in Massachusetts in a presidential year. Is there a hope that maybe it'll be better news for Massachusetts Republicans if she's the nominee?
Absolutely. The one great thing about, not one, but one of the great things about Nikki Haley and Nikki Haley being the nominee of the Republican Party is that she's going to lift up all other offices, because she's the type of Republican that we need right now. Someone who is understanding and considerate and will listen and will bring all voices to the table, because she would be the president for everyone, not just a small little slice of people that she puts into her little group. She's going to be the president for everyone. So her candidacy would lift up governorships, lift up members of Congress, but it would also lift up the legislatures. And here, especially in Massachusetts, where we are more fiscally conservative and socially moderate, we have seen the corner office where we continue to elect Republican governors time after time that have those values. And so when we are running people like that, especially in the Republican Party, the way it is right now in Massachusetts under Amy Carnevale's leadership, we will see more of those types of candidates that can resonate, will resonate, and that voters like to hear from. Nikki Haley will raise them up. Donald Trump is going to sink all of those candidacies.
I do want to look, too, at some recent poll numbers we have out of Quinnipiac University, a Republican primary poll showing Trump with a wide lead, 77% to Haley's 21%, with leads among men and women, both. But that same poll shows Haley leading Biden in a general election matchup with Trump trailing Biden. So you can see those numbers there. That's struck me as a dynamic we often see in Massachusetts here, where Republicans might struggle to get through the primary but be a more appealing candidate in a general election. How does a campaign navigate that?
Well, I mean, again, it's getting the word out that at the end of the day, look, you can win your championship, right, in your conference, but when you're going to the Super Bowl, kind of good timing, when you're going to the Super Bowl, you need to be able to win the Super Bowl. That's the only thing that people are concerned about. This general election is the Super Bowl of all Super Bowls. We have an over 80-year-old president who is mentally unfit for the office that he's in right now. And listen, that is not meant as disrespect. It is just a fact. He is losing it day by day. And we have a woman out there who's 52 years old who has her entire future to look toward, to make the country better and to get everything back on track, not by doing it by causing more chaos and drama, but by actually trying to implement changes that are going to help our country. And so I think continuously talking to voters about that message. And Katie, you are absolutely right. One of the ways that Republicans in Massachusetts continue to sink themselves is when only that small minority comes out and votes in a primary, and then and that's on both sides, by the way. Both small minorities on both sides of the aisle come out and they cast their votes for the most polarizing candidates. And that's why we have the choices that we have in the general election. What I would like to say is, for everyone else that doesn't normally go vote in a primary, this is the most important primary you will ever vote in on March 5th. Make sure that you get out there and you cast your vote, because this will affect future generations.
So what are those get out the vote efforts going to look like for you all, for the Haley team in Massachusetts here over the next few weeks? Where are your efforts going to focus?
Well, I can't really divulge all of my secrets now, can I?
I'm always ready for secrets.
It is really the messaging. It's the messaging from the campaign. It's the messaging from Nikki herself. You know, the world is on fire. And Nikki likes to say, we have a country to save. And as a mom of 3 daughters, I take that incredibly serious. That's what propels me up out of bed every single morning, is that we have a country to save. We cannot continue to go on the path that we're in. It is constant chaos everywhere. It is constant drama everywhere. We are the joke around the world. Instead of being strong and showing leadership, we are the butt of everyone's jokes. And I would like to have a leader who actually holds true those values and morals of our country, shows that leadership, and does it in a way that is classy and that is in a way that we can all use as a role model for our children, for our grandchildren, and also from generations that pass by, for them to be proud of our country again.
In our last 30 or so seconds here, I know we get a lot of the candidates come through to New Hampshire, but maybe not as much as Massachusetts. Any chances of a Haley visit here to Massachusetts?
Well, we're trying for that. I would love to see her come. I think she would get a really fabulous reception here in Massachusetts.
Excellent. Well, Jennifer Nassour, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, an early look at the new nonprofit journalism project, the Greater Boston News Bureau. On social media, former Bay State Banner senior editor Yawu Miller announced the initiative, which he's launching along with Claudio Martinez, executive director of the nonprofit La Vida Scholars. Yawu recently joined Adam to discuss.
Yawu, thanks for being here, and congrats on this new endeavor. So,
thanks, Adam.
What is the Greater Boston News Bureau going to be, and how is it going to work exactly?
So we're going to have a website. We're going to produce articles that will be reprinted in newspapers. Anybody can reprint. We're targeting ethnic news media, such as the Bay State Banner, where I worked for more than 10 years, and El Mundo. Just anybody who wants our content. We're going to translate it into Spanish. We have a contractor who can translate our articles into Haitian Creole. And so articles will appear in print in other publications. We will just exist as a website.
A couple questions about that. First off, these other outlets that pick up your content, they're not going to be paying for it.
No, they're not.
So as far as I am not an entrepreneurially minded person, but how is that going to work economically? How do you make something like this, self-sufficient, something that will be able to last for years, if you're creating content which costs money to produce and then giving it away for free?
Well, there's a national movement toward nonprofit news, and typically what happens is you get money up front from foundations that sort of stake you for the first few years. The way foundations work is their contributions will tend to decline, and as that happens, you're expected to come up with more local funding. So some of that comes from your, subscription base. Now, subscription doesn't mean that somebody needs to subscribe to you to read your content. It just means they support what you're doing, much like the way viewers such as myself support WGBH.
Viewers like you, thank you very much.
And then some of it could come from sponsorships from local businesses. Some of it can come from advertising. So as we get more readership over the course of a few years, then our earned revenue, so locally generated revenue, will increase, and that will take up the slack.
I should mention, since you talked about donors seeding projects like this early on to get them going, you were, I think, or you and Claudio are one of 4 grantees, I believe, who are getting funding and training through the American News Project's Local News Incubator.
Right, American Journalism Project, local news incubator, yeah.
And tell me a little more about that project. When I was looking at the benefactors there, I think Google News is part of it. There's a whole bunch of big national names, right?
Right, absolutely. So, a lot of large funders are looking at the news landscape and understanding that there are news deserts and there are unmet needs. And also the local news landscape across the United States is struggling in different ways. And we're part of the first cohort, along with 3 other organizations that are in various stages of starting up. And we get technical assistance, advice, and funding that's sustaining us as we're building this organization for the first year and a half.
And I should mention to people, I don't think I'm giving anything in an appropriate way here. You've been working on this for a while. I mean, I've had conversations with you when you've come in to talk about local political topics, and we've talked a little bit about this as it was in its infancy, then moving forward. This has been a long road, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of been kicking around the idea for, a couple of years, and it was just an idea until, and then, we applied for this funding from, the American Journalism Project, and we were one of, we were one of 219 applicants, so when we made the final cut, we were pleasantly surprised and, just really happy to move forward.
You and I were texting about this convo before you came in to discuss the project, and you suggested that, among other things, we talk about the different news needs of Black and Latino audiences. Can you elaborate on that? What are the different news needs that Black and Latino audiences have?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, for Latino readers, many people still just would prefer to read their news in Spanish. So that's why we're dedicated to translating everything into Spanish. Also, same might go for Haitian Creole and Cape Verdean Creole. That there are more than 70,000 Cape Verdeans in Massachusetts, more than 80,000 Haitian people in Massachusetts. So we want to reach people in those ways, but also that people of color not just in Boston but across the country have often felt like their perspectives aren't always understood or seen or replicated in mainstream media, so that when I've worked for the Banner, what I have done is writing about any issue, talk to Black people, talk to Latino people about how those issues might affect our communities differently than they affect the broader state community, and then also there are a lot of stories, particularly in the Haitian American community and the Cape Verdean American community, that don't get reported. And, at the Banner, we've followed a lot of, when I worked at the Banner, we followed a lot of those stories. For instance, people who were standardizing the Cape Verdean Creole language. I mean, this goes back years, and, that we've done a couple of articles about the gentleman who lives in Dorchester, who's created the first Cape Verdean English dictionary, the first English Cape Verdean dictionary.
I think I remember reading one of those, yeah.
So, we've kind of, see the stories that aren't getting reported, but also try to reach people in ways that, they'll consume news in ways that they're comfortable consuming news, in ways that they feel seen, that their perspectives are understood.
And how are you going to do this in a way that caters not just to people who are existing news consumers who are maybe your age and my age and are used to picking up a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, or looking online for one, but as you know better than me, a lot of younger news consumers don't get their news the way that we do. So how are you going to get content to them and make sure that they're engaging with the stuff you create?
Right. We've done several community listening sessions, and what we're finding is that among a lot of younger people, they're getting their news on TikTok. They're getting their news on social media. It shouldn't come as a surprise to people of our generation that younger folks are doing that, because we've heard about that. But sort of talking to young people about that, we understand that as writing is going to be our main focus, our bread and butter. But our stories absolutely have to get out in other formats. That means, audio. It means video. If we want to reach young people, and we really do, because we want young people to feel connected to their communities. We want them to feel connected to the civic life in Boston. We want them to vote and understand who's on the ballot. And the best way to do that is to reach them where they're at on social media. Hopefully, some of them will click on the stories and go for a deeper dive. But even if not, we know that the best way to reach them is with audio and video. So,
a lot of news outlets here and I think across the country, traditional news outlets, are trying to broaden their coverage in a way that they're serving communities that they might not have served before. WGBH, I think, fits that bill, the Boston Globe, other outlets around here. Have you run into anyone from established news outlets reacting a little bit defensively to this new project that you're going to be moving ahead with? Like, oh, well, we're already trying to do that. You know, what, you're cutting it on our territory or something like that?
No, I mean, I think there's a growing recognition that there's just not enough. You know, the Globe a few years back said we're no longer the paper of record for the city of Boston.
That's right.
You know, in the 1990s, when I, you know, understood the resources I had to cover the black community at the Bay State Banner, I understood we couldn't be the paper of record for the black community, that, you know, we had to sort of pick and choose the stories we do. And, you know, what are we good at? What are we going to focus on? What are our core competencies? I think every news outlet is doing that. There's always more room. I mean, I certainly felt that at the Bay State Banner when I saw the Globe or the Dorchester Reporter pick up an article that, you know, I didn't get to. Thank God somebody wrote about that. So I think that that in this news environment, it's more about, you know, just getting everything covered as much as we all can, and we don't have to tread on each other's toes or muscle each other out. You know, I mean, there's competition for sure. But it's also, I mean, I think people are generally happy to see more news outlets than fewer.
Final question for you. How soon are we going to see actual articles or audio pieces or video pieces created by the Greater Boston News Bureau? When's that going to start happening?
We're in the early stages, and a lot of it depends on you know, how much funding we're able to get and how soon. But we hope to start you know, to launch a website by the end of the year.
Oh, okay. That's soon. All right. I was thinking it might be longer. Look forward to seeing it. Yahoo Miller, always good to talk to you, and congratulations.
Thanks, Adam.
That's it for tonight, but come back next week and let us know what you think. The email is talkingpolitics@wgbh.org. The website is gbhnews.org/talkingpolitics. And sign up for our politics newsletter while you're at it. For now, thanks for watching. I'm Katie Lannon. Good night.
Hey folks, Edgar B. Herwick III here from GBH's Curiosity Desk, where you ask questions and I find answers. Today we're at the famed Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where thanks to a question from New Hampshire's Lorraine von Snydern, we are literally chasing rainbows.
My question is, why are the rainbows that I see outside after a rainstorm always a perfect arc?
Rainbows are, of course, one of nature's most charming tricks of light, and light is exactly what scientist Matthias Kohl spends his days pondering. In order for a rainbow to appear in the sky, you need three ingredients, so to speak: sunlight, raindrops, and you. And as Cole explains, all three have to be in a very particular spot for the magic to happen.
So the sun has to be behind you.
Okay.
That's the first thing. There's sun behind you. Then there has to be water in the atmosphere in front of you. And that's usually when it rains, you get the condition, right? And then what you also want to do is you want to look at the right spot.
These positions are critical because of the two phenomena responsible for the appearance of a rainbow. A couple of old friends you might remember from middle school: refraction and reflection. Refraction is responsible for a rainbow's colors. When sunlight enters a raindrop, it bends. White light, like sunlight, is comprised of a spectrum of colored light. Now, each color is at a slightly different wavelength and bends at a slightly different angle when it enters the droplet.
All of a sudden we get the splitting of colors, where the reds and the oranges and the greens and the blues go in slightly different directions.
After the light enters the raindrop and is split into its component colors, a small portion of it reflects off the back and heads in a new direction. With each color now on a slightly different path, it refracts one more time as it's leaving the droplet and heads back down toward the Earth at a very precise angle. 40 degrees for the red, about 42 degrees for the violet, with the other colors in between. And that's just one raindrop. All of this is happening at an incredible scale, with literally billions of rays of light hitting billions of raindrops.
It happens in every raindrop. As long as it sees the ray of sun, it will do that refraction, reflection, refraction thing. But if you're not standing in the right position, you will not see this by most of the raindrops.
But if you are in the right position, that magic angle between 40 and 42 degrees, there will be raindrops galore, throwing innumerable beams of distinct red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet light right at you. And the raindrops that are at that perfect angle relative to the sun and you form a distinct shape.
All the droplets that are on this arc are going to send the light in the right direction for me to catch it.
So we have to think about it three-dimensionally, right? So it's like this.
Exactly.
And my elbow's kind of my eyes in
Your
this
elbows would be
scenario,
your
right?
eyes in the scenario, exactly.
You can think of it like a cone, with you at the point and the rainbow appearing along the circumference of the base. Now, as for why the entire circumference doesn't light up like a rainbow, well, the ground gets in the way. If you could get up high enough so that there's a lot of rain below your feet, well, Cole says, imagine you're Jack on a beanstalk.
And as he climbs up, this arc would actually shift with him, but extend further and further below and start to actually, once it's in half arc, start to arc back on itself. And as he climbs higher and higher, this arc might close. And all of a sudden you don't have an arc, but you have a circle.
A rain circle.
A rain circle. Not a rainbow anymore, a rain circle.
And if you think rain circles are cool, consider this. All of those individual raindrops that are making the rainbow that you see are unique to your position. And they're changing constantly, moment to moment. So forget about leprechauns and pots of gold. The real magic is in the science and the fact that anytime you see one, you are literally standing in the center of your own personal rainbow. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and perhaps most importantly, let me know what you are curious about, because no matter how colorful the question, I might look into it for you. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there. Oh, tasty rainbow. It's not vomit, it's a rainbow.
The Curiosity Desk is sponsored by Emerson College, inspiring curiosity and creative expression in all of us.
Mary, wherever